Okay, so now to the question section. I'll start with Paul, so I'll let Pam get her breath back. Paul, first question. Why are there so many children now self-harming, bulimic, anorexic? What causes children transitioning to suffer these dreadful traumatic diseases?
Yeah, people can hear me, yeah. I suppose the issue with mental health is tricky. I mean, there's no evidence to suggest that more young people are suffering from mental health issues now than ever before. I think what the evidence is telling us is that our awareness of it is becoming greater. Young people are more likely to declare that they have a problem. Parents and teachers are more sensitive to it and picking it up earlier. I think that, you know, the various, I mean, you know, eating disorders is, at the end of it all, is a mental health issue determined by the three key factors that will impact on mental health, which is personality, experiences and supports. And those three factors explain pretty much any mental health issue with any child. So, you know, you can't dismiss the fact that some young people are going to be sensitive to particular vulnerabilities, whether that be anxiety, depression, eating difficulties, whatever. And then if you combine that with their experiences, combine that with the supports they have, those difficulties can become serious mental health issues. I don't know if that answers the question, but you know, the research the world over is not telling us that more young people are experiencing mental health issues now than they ever did before. There's no evidence to support that. I think the fact is we just are more aware of it, and we're clear when it does happen, and we want to try and intervene. In the past, it probably went significantly unnoticed.
Thank you. Pam, there are a lot of questions re the value of homework for children. Isn't encouraging kids to engage in extra learning websites, etc., taking away from time that children should just be allowed to play? How much structured learning is too much?
Annie?
She's gone.
Yeah. I'm one of those people who thinks that maybe homework isn't such a good idea, so maybe I should just duck right now in case anybody throws anything at me. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of schoolwork done in school, and that's the place that schoolwork should be done. And outside of school, we should be running around in the park and learning the way we naturally learn. Short answer.
Okay, Paul, see if you can get an applause for this. No pressure. No pressure. What can schools and parents do to educate children on the pros and cons of social media? Do you want that, Mike?
I mean, I think the issue with social media is that the work really rests with parents and children. You know, the schools can do relatively little. I mean, social media is about communication. I think that you've got to see it in the context of a changing world, of a developing world. I think it's about talking as early as possible. I mean, you know, I see now parents with kids 4 and 5 and they're messing with laptops and stuff like that, or they're messing with iPads, and that's all good. But I think the talking has to happen around that as well, and the issues around the dangers in an age-appropriate way, the reasonable use, the amount of time kids are spending on all that stuff needs to get talked about at 4, 5 and 6 before they become before they hit that age where they're coming into secondary school, where all the other pressures come on them and they don't want to be talking to their parents about it. But I'm not sure. I think you can always include stuff in curriculums, but I think the real education happens at home, and it's about talking and modelling, of course. I mean, parents, you know, like, and I'm like I fall into this category. You know, you say I'm really worried about the amount of time my kids are spending on the internet or on the phones, and like you can't go anywhere without your own phone. You're spending lots of time on the internet yourself. So it's about role modelling and about communication in the home, I think.
Okay, thank you.
and it's also about playing in the park. That's really important. Seeing as I got a clap, okay.
Pam, you might have answered this in the whole of your presentation, but just in case you've got anything to add. What practical tips can you give parents to help them remember how to have fun so that they can better play with their children?
Take off your shoes. That would be the first thing. Yeah. We really don't use our senses enough, so we should be, whenever we can, exploring and touching and feeling, and that would be my only other extra tip, because I wanted to bring in as much as possible at least one other of our senses. So I talked about listening and hearing and making noises, but also we should really be trying to be those people that you see walking around in the shops, touching things and feeling, what does that feel like and what does this feel like? So I think just using as many of your senses as you can gets you back to who you are as a person, and then once you know who you are as a person, you know what you want to know, you know what you want to learn, and you start to get curious about the world. So I think probably my biggest tip is just start touching things, pointing at things and picking things up. You're walking around the shops and you're saying to the children, oh, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that. If it's not going to break, then why not? Just have a little feel, see what does it feel like.
Okay, Paul, what is the best tip you can give parents for promoting a positive atmosphere in their home and encouraging good communication within the family?
Well, I hope that the slide that I put up answers a lot of that question. But I think respect is an interesting word. I think that there's a lot of focus on. I think respect and creating positive time, positive experiences. Pam's given lots of examples of that. From an emotional development perspective, all those opportunities to engage with children and that sort of stuff is really, really important. And not focusing on the negatives. There's a lot of parents beat themselves up. I haven't spent enough time. I was tired and I lost my temper. Forget about all those times. It's the positive times. Creating one positive time a day with kids can be that in itself is really important. I wish my mother would stop clapping up there. But I also think respect. I think this issue of respect, because I think that families are communities, and I think it's very difficult at times for parents to broker relationships between siblings, but also for themselves and their partner. You're not going to be loving each other all the time, so it's about trying to build in that concept of respect. So I would say respect, communication, obviously, and then the third thing is focusing on the positive experiences. If that's one a day, one every 2 days, whatever, but focusing on them and making as much out of them as you can.
Okay, thank you. Pam, this isn't from me now, just to say, but I have 4 kids, aged 3 to 12. How can I come up with activities to suit them all while they are on holidays?
Holidays? 2 whole months. When I was talking about teams, that's one of the reasons that I like teams is that everybody can get involved at their own level. So if I'm doing butterflies for an example, then you've got all kinds of things to do with butterflies. So if you're doing baking, then the older children can do all the weighing and do all those bits. And so I think having a team or having a project to do together that everybody can get involved in at their own level, that usually works for me. So my children are grown up now, but I've got my niece and nephew who come over to stay a lot of the time in the summertime, and we just do some stuff that we can all do, and that includes the adults. So we look for something that we're all interested in, or that one of us is passionately interested in, and the rest of us kind of row into theirs so that they'll row into ours when it's our turn to go with our passion. And then I think we just all do bits of one project. So that would be my maybe very easy answer to it. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Okay. Paul, what do you think is the biggest threat to children's mental health and well-being in our current society?
I don't think there's any external threats really. I think that mental health is usually determined by close internal issues, whether that be personal trauma, whether it be family trauma, whether it be family difficulties. And I don't need to list them. It doesn't mean though that if a young person has a mental health issue or an emotional issue that's because there's a family problem, or in fact that's a big obstacle to seeking help. But most children who develop mental health issues They develop them because, as I said, of the three issues. We can't protect them from their experiences. So what we have to do is try and build their emotional resilience, their ability to deal with difficulties. I think where we don't do that, then it's likely that they will develop problems when confronted with a challenge or an issue. I don't think, I mean, I don't know who's asked the question, but usually people want me to say, well, the internet or bullying or drugs or alcohol, children will be able to deal with those challenges if they have built up those emotional skills. So the real challenge within modern society is failing to address that with our kids. And the obligation, unfortunately, even though it's fun and all that, is with parents, because schools don't have the time. Schools can create a good environment and they can help children enhance those skills, but it really boils down to parents. So I think that's the biggest threat, that parents don't prioritise it, or they don't see it as important, or where emotional difficulties do occur, they panic and they don't know what to do. So I think it's about being able to see it in perspective and being able to see it as a key responsibility. I think that's the biggest challenge for us.
Okay, thank you. Pam, my child resists anything he thinks is learning when he is not in his school. What can I do to further his learning at home?
I don't know if my presentation maybe addressed that a little bit, but I would do anything that doesn't feel like it's learning, really. Anything that's fun, because I think that our biggest challenge really is when we do fun things is recognising what the learning is. So maybe we might know, but we're not actually saying, oh, hey, do you know what? When we're doing this game, we're also doing maths, because why would you say that to the children? Unless they wanted to know. If it's going to put them off, just don't say that. But you know, don't you, that you're doing those different mathematical things. So I think the biggest challenge is just finding fun things to do that everyone is enjoying, and then for us to recognise what the learning is in those things, and not to mention it if they don't want to mention it. Because I think they're right, we shouldn't be doing education at home. We should be just learning fun kind of things.
Thank you. Paul, is today's around 3% male attendancy rate at similar patterns in local parents' councils and school involvement, together with single mother families, increased due to some society failure? Are specific male roles in parenting redundant?
I get a clap for this answer now. Well, I'd say, I mean, the factual answer is that the truth is that females, mothers, parent more than males, fathers. That's the reality. And has that changed? No, it hasn't. Have males become more involved in parenting? Absolutely. I think the male role model has changed completely, and the idea that the males would head off to the match or whatever, that has changed. I think that where you're talking about things like parents' councils and that sort of formal structure, I think they're relatively new structures, and I think that in that situation you're going to have more females involved. I think that society has changed for the better. I think that males, fathers, are much more involved now than my day, than my father's day. I think you see much more engaged fathers. But I think that the primary parenting still rests with females. I don't think that's a societal failure, no. I think that's always going to be the case. I think that it would be a shame for us to dismiss male involvement as being just role modelling. I think we need to work hard to change things. But I think that is changing. You talk to teenagers, you talk to young males in their 20s, and they have even more desire to be involved in the parenting process. So it is changing, but I think it's attendances at events like today are different, because I think that this is a relatively new concept of National Parents' Councils. What I mean by that is it's over 10, 20 years. It's parental involvement at this level is evolving all the time, and you're going to have more female involvement at the start of that. But I think in time you'll see change to that too.
Just a last question then to both speakers. Pam, my child is on the autistic spectrum. Have you any tips, ideas to help me get him engaged with play?
I'm not an expert on children on the autistic spectrum, but I suppose I would probably say along the same. You'll know. I would say this. I facilitate the Incredible Years parenting program as well, And one of the things that we would always say at the start is that you know your child, so you know what they like, and you're testing the things that they like. And really, as I said, learning is all about finding something that's fun, finding something that you like, that your child likes, and going with that. And then you, as a parent, recognising what is involved, what's the worth in it, what's the value, what's the learning that was involved in that thing. So for me, I suppose my answer to that would be just, again, go with whatever your child really, really likes, and then recognise what's involved in that. And you know, whatever it is that you're doing, sometimes it can be difficult to try and figure out what exactly is involved. And I know some parents would go through the list of school subjects as a way of reminding themselves of what's involved, even if it's... So I showed maths up there when I was talking about what was involved in this game. So I took maths as a subject and thought, well, what mathematical things are involved in that thing? So I didn't start off by thinking, can I put maths into something? I started off with, what's fun? And this game I thought was an interesting, easy, fun game to do. And then I recognised what was good about the game. So I think that's the way to go with any child, is go with what they really love, and then as a parent, recognise what's involved in that.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Paul, I don't think my child is trying hard enough, but I'm afraid of putting too much pressure on him. What should I do?
Yeah, I mean, I love these questions because whoever asked that question knows the answer. I mean, you know, what should you do? Like, kids, we can all, you know, it's a common thing you feel, they're not doing enough, they're not trying hard enough, they could do better in school if they only gave it. Well, they've made a decision that this is not a priority in their life. And unfortunately, all the work and all the pressure and all the hassle is not going to change that. What we can do is focus on the stuff that they do like to do, and try and keep them engaged in school, and try and continually focus on what the things they are achieving in school. But I think when, you know, not trying enough is often a code for, look, I think they could do better, but they just don't want to do it. And the answer is you can't change a child who's decided that their priority is not school or academia. I mean, the last point I would want to make is that, you know, and it's following on from Pam's point, we live in an era of KPIs, you know. So we all, I don't know many people here work outside the home, but KPIs are a big thing, your key performance indicators. We live in an era where we expect kids to get certain amount of points. Everything is, you know, we rate teachers, we rate everybody. And, you know, parents are insecure. But the answers to most parenting issues rest within our own hearts. We know ourselves what to do. We know, and if we look deep enough, we know we are good parents who know our kids best. So it's really important that we remember that message, I think, out of a day like today, that if we go back to what we think is the right thing to do, and particularly people in this room who are so committed to parenting, we will find the right answers.
Thank you. And just to thank the speakers again this afternoon for giving their time.